across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are, the week starts here. Let's get going. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for the next 3 thrilling hours of news, views and topical debate all the way to 10 o'clock. Get involved, get stuck in and call me on 0344 499 1000 or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Monday, September the 22nd. Here's what's coming up. Nigel Farage becomes the first major politician to confront the coming horror of the so-called Boris wave. The 3.8 million foreigners that Lib Dem in Tory clothing Boris Johnson let into the country, who will soon qualify for full benefits and even citizenship. 85% of these legal migrants were not workers, but after succeeding in sticking around for 5 years, are about to be nodded through for permanent residency with the same rights as those who were born here. The madness of the indefinite leave to remain system will unleash a vast welfare tsunami that could bankrupt the country. 0344 499 1000, while Kemi's Conservatives promise a consultation by the end of the year, apparently unaware of the urgency of the desperate situation, and no one else says a word about it. Farage today vowed that a reform government will abolish indefinite leave to remain, no longer pay benefits to migrants, and deport hundreds of thousands of illegals. This, he promises, will save us £230 billion a year. What's not to like? 0344 499 1000. In other news, after 1,072 foreigners broke into the country illegally on Friday, the small boat invasion continued apace into the weekend. And incredibly, Starmer's Labour groupies were still boasting about getting 3 back to France under the inaccurately named one-in, one-out scheme. As Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philps so rightly said, gormless government twonks bragging about this ludicrous imbalance is quite simply absurd. 3 out, thousands and thousands in. What would you call this baffling, nonsensical deal with France? 0344, by the way, it's a family show. 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, shock, horror and fury as, despite Labour's dubious track record for anti-Semitism, Starmer recognises the state of Palestine in what critics say is a reward for Hamas terrorism. Two-Tier insists that this is the right moral thing to do. Is it? Or is this giving the baby killer rapists of Hamas exactly what they want? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, exposed as the duplicitous, venal schemer she's always been, that atrocious excuse for a woman, Fergie, was today dropped as patron by 7 charities, most of them children's charities, that understandably concluded that her grovelling emails to her, and I quote, supreme friend, convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, were inconsistent with purporting to care about kids. I would suggest that this woman has only ever cared about the contents of her own wallet. Please, no more sympathy for the disgraced Duchess of York, who was earlier photographed hiding in the back seat as her similarly dreadful former husband, Prince Andrew, drove them from their Windsor home. Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. 0344 499 1000. Also tonight, Rupert Lowe on the mass deportations he advocated, but his nemesis, Nigel Farage, once declared to be impossible. And I'll ask Mr. Lowe about his letter to a top university asking why all students are being forced to eat halal meat. Why should the vast majority have to conform to the religious needs of the minority? 03444991000. Plus, the rise and fall of Jeremy Corbyn's Your Party as old Jezza threatens to sue his partner in left-wing crime, Zara Sultana, and she threatens to sue him. Nevertheless, with 800,000 supporters, the party with no name looks set to be a major thorn in Labour's side. Meanwhile, back in Downing Street, the chaos carries on with Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, accused of misusing political donations and secretly spending 700 grand on getting Keir into the top slot. Not forgetting, of course, Charlie Kirk's extraordinary funeral in Arizona, attended by a vast crowd of as many as 100,000. I'll talk to one of the mourners present as Charlie's widow, Erica, and Donald Trump addressed the throng. And finally, our royal guru, Kinsey Schofield, on Harry's delusional belief that he will soon be accepted back into the warm embrace of his British family. One palace insider pointing out that old Ginger Nuts seems to have mistaken a brief tea and cakes meeting with the king for the Treaty of Versailles. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And we're going to go straight over to my first guest. She is in glamorous Istanbul as part of her travels as a top international journalist, our international editor. Welcome, Isabel Oakeshott. How are you doing, Isabel?
Well, Kev, if I look a bit funny, it's because I'm in a windowless hotel room, and it's fair to say that I don't have the best of lighting, but I am excited to join you, and there's plenty to talk about.
Actually, you mentioned to me earlier that the lighting might be terrible. It's not quite up to your usual standard, but it's absolutely fine, and you're looking fantastic as ever. We, of course, need to talk about this government, this awful government, recognising Palestine in a little while. But I think for the average Brit, the biggest story today, which you and I actually sort of highlighted last Tuesday, I believe it was. This is Nigel Farage being the only politician in this country to confront a very, very serious gathering storm. This is the Boris wave. So Boris allowed into the country while he was Prime Minister 3.8 million legal migrants. Now, we have a mad system in this country that no matter how you get here, no matter what your circumstances are of residing in this country, after 5 years, you go, I've been here 5 years. And the government said, fair enough, you can stay forever. That's the system. It's called indefinite leave to remain. So if you get to 5 years, no ifs, no buts, you can stay for the rest of your life. And at that point, you qualify for everything that those who were born in this country qualify: full benefits, healthcare, etc., etc. Now, 3.8 million people over the next 2-3 years qualifying for full benefits. That will unleash a welfare tsunami that will almost certainly bankrupt this country. Today, Nigel Farage announced that he will abolish indefinite leave to remain. It just has to be abolished. It must be abolished. He will do it. He also said that he will deport hundreds and thousands of illegal migrants who are in this country unlawfully, and that will save the Exchequer a staggering £230 billion. I mean, frankly, as the only politician brave enough to face this dire situation down in terms of what he said, what's not to like? It has to be done, doesn't it, Isabel?
I mean, it really does have to be done. And I mean, what Reform is proposing is in one way really radical. I mean, it's something that no other political party would dare to articulate. The idea that basically hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people are going to lose their rights to stay in this country, because this isn't just something that they propose will happen in the future. They propose to make it retrospective. So vast numbers of people between now and the next election, whoever ends up winning the next election, basically have a big, heavy question mark hanging over their future in this country. And I think what Reform hopes, what Nigel Farage hopes, is that when they actually look at the reality of what will come under a Reform government, should Reform win the next election, they will voluntarily pack up their bags and go. Now, they're not going to do that immediately because nobody knows who's going to win the next election. Reform may mess up, things may change, it may not happen. But if Reform were to win the next election, a huge number of people will lose their entitlements to benefit and their kind of lifelong meal ticket in the UK. And they're going to have to face up to the fact that they will either have to get a job or basically ship out. And that makes Reform's pledge to deport lots of people an awful lot easier to achieve. In fact, they won't actually have to do mass deportation if an awful lot of people leave of their own accord.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Boris Johnson, as I called him in my monologue, a Lib Dem in Tory clothing. This guy's not a Conservative. It's ridiculous what he did. His net zero obsession and this immigration situation is a scandal. It's a scandal what he did to this country. Let's remind ourselves, you spotted this in a column in the Times about a week ago, and we kind of gave it a wider audience, if you like, and ever since then certain politicians, including Mr. Farage, have been waking up to this. As I say, this is a gathering storm. This is a coming tsunami. If we allow these 3.8 million people, foreigners, to get full benefits, full citizen rights, then this country will go bankrupt. It has to be stopped. It has to be stopped. But let's just remind ourselves of Boris's crimes, if we may. He was elected in 2019. When he was elected, net migration into this country, this is legal migration, was 188,000. Between January 21 and June 2024, an astonishing, as I was saying, 3.8 million foreigners were given UK visas in an unprecedented influx. Now, fewer than a fifth of these people came in on work visas. Digest that for a second. Fewer than a fifth. Nearly all of these migrants who came in the Boris wave weren't workers, are probably still not workers. 5% of these people were skilled and highly paid. They're the kind of migrants we want. 7% came here on healthcare visas, 4.6% on other work visas. The remaining 83% came in as dependents, family, students, or for humanitarian reasons. Now, they are soon to qualify for indefinite leave to remain. And Boris, the damage Boris did to this country is incalculable. Now, I applaud and salute Nigel Farage for going public with this. But unfortunately, he's not the government. He's not the Prime Minister. What worries me is, what is Labour doing about this? All we've heard from Labour is that there might be a consultation organised by the Home Office towards the end of the year. Labour has no sense of urgency about this, and we need a sense of urgency because this could be catastrophic.
Well, I fear that Labour won't actually do anything about it. I mean, there's just no way that they would be brave enough to do anything retrospective, that's for sure. And I just can't see them doing it. I think that they will almost carry on, you know, fingers in their ears, la, 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 nothing's happening, nothing to see here. And as you say, I mean, Boris Johnson bears an enormous responsibility and culpability for this crisis. And I think it's just had nowhere near enough political attention. You know, the idea that this over 80% of the vast numbers he let in were basically coming in as non-contributors to the economy is absolutely breathtaking. And in announcing today that if a Reform government were lucky enough to win, they would actually unravel the rights of all those people who may, between now and the next election, get rights to remain. That is basically Farage saying, look, we don't trust Labour to do anything about this, and so we're going to have to do something quite extraordinary in British politics, which is to basically pull the rug from under a bunch of people who we don't believe ever should have been allowed to stay in the first place. Once they have indefinite leave to remain, people can bring in their dependents. This is really, really serious.
Yeah, that's a good point, Isabel. We're talking about 3.8 million people who are here, and many of them, should they qualify for indefinite leave to remain, which under the current system, they almost certainly will. As I say, you get to 5 years, no matter how you came here, no matter what your circumstances of residency are. If you get to 5 years, our government basically turns around, our system has been, we turn around and say, OK, all bets are off, you can stay. You did your 5 years, now you can stay for the rest of your life. This is nodded through. Now, if they do get nodded through on the ILR, the indefinite leave to remain, as you quite rightly say, many of them, probably millions of them, will then start bringing in their families. We will be consumed by a welfare tsunami. So Nigel Farage, as I say, the only tragedy is that Nigel Farage is not the Prime Minister and Reform UK are not the party of government. Our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and Labour's party of government, I don't trust them to confront this. And if they don't, this country is sunk. I mean, this is extraordinary.
It absolutely is. And I think what Reform did today is it actually, at the very least, opened a serious debate about some of the other qualifications that should be necessary if you're going to be allowed to remain in the UK forever. For example, the ability to speak a really good standard of English. I mean, if you're going to be part of our country long term, then you've got to be able to speak the language that most people use, and you've got to be able to pay your way. And the proposals today link the right to be in our country with working visas. So basically it replaces a kind of assumption that you can stay come what may, with tying your right to be in our country to your ability to get and hold down a well-paid job. And the proposal is to raise very significantly the threshold for what is considered a well-paid job. At the moment, the government has actually kind of to and froed a bit on what that threshold should be. I think they were recently talking about actually lowering it. Reform would go way, way higher with that threshold, well above average income, to ensure that we still get the brightest and best. This isn't a kind of wholesale anti-anyone coming in. No sensible political party would not want to attract the absolutely brilliant. But that, unfortunately, is not what guided policy.
Yeah, this isn't about, if anybody says, Kev's being so, Kev and Isabella being so heartless, Nigel Farage is being heartless. This isn't about social generosity, heartlessness or anything. This is a sheer practical, massive Uber problem that we have to confront. As Zia Youssef said today, Britain cannot continue in our self-appointed role as the world's food bank. We let in more than anyone else. We allow 48% of all asylum seeker applications to be granted, and so on and so on, miles more than anyone else. As soon as you get here, you break into the country, we start giving you 50 quid a week and a free hotel. We've got to stop this because people say, these are fellow human beings. What about the human beings who live here? This costs a lot of tax money, and the people who live here, millions of people who live here, are struggling with that tax. They're struggling to get by. So this is about a British government looking after British people, and we must cease this bizarre practice we have of prioritising foreigners over British citizens. It's got to stop. Absolutely 100%. When we come back, Isabel, we'll talk about the other element of the migrant crisis, the illegal migrant crisis. We'll talk about that after this break. Stay tuned.
We will pass what legislation is necessary to see this through. And I think the majority of the public will be behind us, because nobody wants to pay so much taxes for people who've just arrived. And look, it's not about race or nationality. It's about rights and responsibility.
But you know that's what people are going to say. You know that's what the left is going to say.
Of course.
This is bigotry.
They say that for everything. It all comes down to race. They call us far right for wanting to prioritise British people. But, the public owes nothing to someone who arrived 5 years ago and hasn't contributed. I'm sorry, we just don't.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I was just discussing with my excellent guest, Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott, our legal migrant crisis, which is enormous, which is massive, which is coming to a head thanks to the Boris wave. Let's now, Isabel, talk about the illegal migrant crisis. And now, on Friday, 1,072 migrants came in. Slowed down over the weekend, 85 on Saturday. Looks like no one came in yesterday. However, 1,072, that's right up near the record books. Now, the one-in, one-out scheme is supposed to be a deterrent. Now, I don't cut the Tories any slack whatsoever as they stand there sniping from the wings. Oh, Labour are messing up the migrant crisis. Well, it's your fault, you lot, you Tories. So Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, I'm going to cut him some slack now because he said something that makes sense. But let's just get this into context. The Tories were so far probably even more disastrous than Labour on the migrant crisis. Labour seem to be surging ahead now. Incredibly, they're within a few weeks probably of making it even worse than the Tories, which is no mean feat. But as these 1,072 came in, 85 on that, this deluge last week coming in, the one-in, one-out scheme, they started to get rolling. They managed to get 3 migrants out by last Friday. Still a load of legal challenges on other migrants. And they were up there sort of trumpeting this, shouting it from the rooftop. Look, we've started to get migrants back. Yeah! I mean, people are just going, what the hell are these people on about? Chris Philp quite rightly saying that boasting, Labour, Starmer and his idiot cabinet twonks, boasting about the success of the one-in, one-out scheme, 3 out, tens of thousands in, it's just simply absurd. It's absurd. Who the hell do they think they're kidding?
I mean, they're kidding absolutely nobody except perhaps themselves. That absolutely extraordinary, delusional now junior minister, I think, Mike Tapp, put out this tweet on social media.
He's the Dover MP, isn't he? Dover MP.
At the end of last week, warning would-be Channel migrants not to waste their money coming over, because if they come to the UK, they will be deported. I mean, this is just a lie. The statistics suggest they have an infinitesimal chance of being deported. And I'm really glad that you're still talking about this, Kev, and the 1,000 plus that came over on the day that they were boasting about the removal of 2 or 3. Because I think we've got to keep on exposing the lies and exposing the shortcomings. It's gaslighting the entire nation to pretend that this problem is in any way being tackled when it so demonstrably isn't. I mean, when you think about those numbers, 1,000 plus in
a single day, yeah.
Think about the logistics of that. Think about how much accommodation is needed for all those people. Think about the scale of the catering, the welfare, the healthcare, the problems that importing that many people in one day creates. And then think about that replicated multiple times over every month. And you get some idea why our country is on its knees.
Yeah, and this scheme started, it was announced in early July. It started in early August. And since then, more than 10,000 migrants have crossed the channel illegally. Something like, I think it was mid-September, was it, a couple of weeks ago, Shabana Mahmood became the new Home Secretary. Something like 5,000 have come over since she became Home Secretary. So the whole point of one in, one out, according to the government, I'm only quoting them, it's a deterrent. It's a deterrent so that when migrants come across a channel, that they believe, or this ridiculous government believes, that telling these migrants, you come across the channel, there's a 1 in 17 chance that we could pick on you to be returned to France under one in, one out. There you go. So don't risk it. They'll go, well, that's well worth the risk. Particularly as it's very easily challengeable. If you get chosen for deportation, immigration lawyers are successfully challenging these deportations left, right and centre. So it was never a deterrent, and it has been proved it's not a deterrent by the absolute invasion only on Friday. This just proves it. The people smugglers, what was it, Shabana Mahmood said, we've dealt a huge blow to the people smuggling gangs on the day that 1,072 migrants came over courtesy of the people smuggling gangs who would have made a fortune out of it. You haven't dealt any blow whatsoever to the smuggling gangs. Not a single blow at all has been struck on these evil people. Nonsense. Palpably, we could see before our very eyes, this isn't a deterrent. It isn't deterring anyone. So then you come to the actual tenets of the scheme itself, which is, it doesn't solve anything anyway, because numerically you just swap one for another. So we send them one, French send us one back. Yeah. So it doesn't do anything numerically. The chance of being deported is clearly not working as a deterrent. So all this scheme is an additional, pretty high, completely unnecessary expense for the British taxpayer. It is a complete waste of time and money. There is already, it's obvious, there is no point to it whatsoever. Am I right?
I actually think it's even worse, and you've portrayed it, because if you continually advertise your incompetence to the whole world, what you do is continue to advertise the benefits of keeping on trying to come to Britain, to would-be migrants, you know, by shouting about a scheme and then it's so obviously not working. All that does is send out a message to would-be new arrivals from all over the world that it's most definitely worth giving it a go, because the British government has absolutely no control whatsoever. And we keep on showing that. It's worse than nothing. It would be better to actually keep really quiet and leave a question mark over what happens to people when they reach the UK if they've come here illegally. But instead, we've advertised it and advertised like one forlorn figure being deported to France, you know, from India. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. And as we were saying on Friday, Kev, it isn't even swapping like for like, because we are sending people back who have no chance whatsoever of remaining. You know, they have no basis to their case. Whereas France is sending us people who actually have apparently met some spurious or real criteria for remaining. So we're swapping a no-hoper for a definite stayer.
Yeah.
That doesn't stack up to me.
Yeah, I bet you some of these migrants coming over from France under 1 in, 1 out are probably coming to live with their relatives who arrived here during the Boris wave. Honestly, you just go from useless government to useless government. It really is a joke. And I just want to finally say, I'd like to hear from you folks, from the fabulous audience. Do you share my anger, my fury, that this government is insulting our intelligence? You know, we see 1,072 coming across the channel on Friday, and the government goes, yeah, we got 3 back on the 1 in, 1 out scheme now. 3, got 3 back. I mean, who the hell do they think they're kidding? 03444991000. Next up, Isabel, another government horror, the recognition of Palestine as a state. Stay tuned for that, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor Isabel Oakeshott, who's on a mission. She's in Istanbul at the moment. Isabel, let's talk. Well, let's talk about this. This is Keir Starmer recognising Palestine.
In the face of the growing horror in the Middle East, we are acting to keep alive the possibility of peace and a two-state solution. That means a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. At the moment, we have neither. So today, to revive the hope of peace and a two-state solution, I state clearly, as Prime Minister of this great country, that the United Kingdom formally recognises the state of Palestine.
So, Isabel, as we approach October the 7th, the anniversary of Hamas's atrocious, disgusting invasion of Israel, let's remember what they did. I mean, they murdered, they slaughtered around about 1,100 innocent Jews. They decapitated babies. They put babies into the oven and turned the ovens on. They raped women. They slaughtered kids, innocent kids. Here we are, approaching the anniversary of that heinous event, As the Jewish people will tell you, the worst massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust, since the Nazis. What does our Prime Minister do? He rewards Hamas, the perpetrators of this evil abomination. He rewards them. What do they want? They want recognition of the Palestinian state. And for murdering 1,100 people, raping women, killing babies, Keir Starmer has decided to give them what they want. What on earth is he thinking?
Well, Kev, I was only slightly smiling there because Keir Starmer sounded so ridiculous as he said all this in a completely artificially slow fashion. You know, you felt that he was doing it because what was it Blair said about Northern Ireland, something about the hand and feeling the hand.
I'm not one for sound bites, but the hand of history is on my shoulder.
That is what Keir Starmer was channeling there. You felt that he was playing and performing for the history books, for the record. But in a sense, it's meaningless. What is this Palestinian state that he's recognised? Where is the government of this state? Where exactly are the borders of this state? How is this state controlled? I mean, none of it makes any sense. At the moment, what you've got in Palestine is, without a doubt, a total, humanitarian nightmare. You've got very little infrastructure. And essentially, he's recognising something that just isn't there. A complete and utter horror of a mess, and it's all about appeasing his own Labour voters, basically his parliamentary party, the backbenchers, and so many of the sort of the hard left. And I think it's a shameful decision.
It's a dark day in British history. It really, really is. And apart from alienating our old allies, Israel and America, and, by the way, risking to have to pay £2 trillion in reparations should a Palestinian state ever materialise. That's what we might have to pay if this happens. So apart from alienating Israel and America, our oldest allies, and risking £2 trillion in reparations, what has Starmer actually achieved? What is Britain achieving by recognising Palestine? It's actually nothing. A lot of people said, well, it was in the Labour Party manifesto. Well, it was, but only if it was part of a peace process. If peace could be achieved by Britain recognising Palestine, the Labour manifesto said we will do that. But it had to be geared towards a peace settlement. David Lammy, who was out on the media rounds at the weekend, he accepted, no, this isn't going to bring about a ceasefire or peace. So then people would say, oh, well, what it is, it's Starmer and Labour because they want to secure or to keep the Muslim vote. Well, they pretty much already had that. So they really didn't need to go the extra mile with this recognition. I really do fear, Isabel, that this is just classic old school Labour. Can't stand Israel, doesn't like the Jews, and therefore is going to recognise Palestine. A sort of throwback to Corbynism, if you like. There's a morally right thing to do. Well, I'm sorry, but this is international politics, not Sunday school. So I don't think Starmer's achieved anything except for a bit of classic Labour socialist virtue signalling. And that is no way to fall out with the entire Western world. It's ridiculous.
Well, there's a really serious question, I suppose, for opposition parties, which is whether they would reverse it. And I'm not sure whether any of the opposition parties have actually showed their hand on this. You might hope that some would go down that route and say, if we get into power, we will reverse it. But it's not that easy a thing to do. It takes a long time for governments, and particularly the Foreign Office, to change anything on these sorts of subjects. I mean, quite recently, David Lammy's foreign secretary did something quite unexpected and recognised the Western Sahara as part of Morocco. And that was after years of the UK being an outlier. It was a very welcome development, but it took a long time. And so I really fear for the long-term implications of this policy. I mean, you asked what has Labour gained? Well, as you know, I live in the Middle East and I read the papers, the Middle Eastern papers every day. And naturally, there's huge amount of coverage about the suffering of ordinary civilians in Gaza and the death and destruction. So I suppose if we're going to be even-handed and fair here, we would say that this shift in position, this momentous declaration will, I suppose, garner some favour in the Arab world. Of course it will do. But the price of that is the loss of other allies. And, the Jewish community in the UK feels so abandoned. They feel so isolated and as if so much of our country has turned its back on them. And this will only exacerbate that despair.
And also there was this pathetic, as if a sort of appeasement to Donald Trump and indeed Netanyahu. Oh, we'll recognise Palestine, but we're going to up the ante on sanctions to Hamas. Oh, big deal. Hamas, of course, as he said, no, this isn't to reward terrorism. Yes, it is. This isn't to reward Hamas. Well, how come Hamas were pretty much holding parties in the streets today? They were so thrilled by this development. Hamas have been rewarded for one of the worst atrocities in the history of the human race. And Starmer should hang his head in shame. I tweeted today another reason he should hang his head in shame. You won't believe this, Isabel. 3 hours ago on Twitter, he posted this, the Prime Minister, wishing all Jewish communities celebrating Rosh Hashanah a happy and sweet new year. May it be full of blessings and joy. Shana Tova. How dare he? How dare he do that? I mean, if nothing else, what a tin ear to do that today.
What an absolutely extraordinary tin-eared thing to do, as you say, but it is so in keeping with Keir Starmer, the absolute blundering inability to read the room, the crass insensitivity of that. Today of all days, the last time they want to hear something from Keir Starmer of that nature, all they will be thinking right now is just get back in your bunker and stay there.
Yeah. And finally, before we go to break, let's make it clear that this is water off Benjamin Netanyahu's back. He could give a damn. He's already resigned himself to the kind of philosophical opposition of Britain, of this socialist government. He's used to that. He doesn't really care. As you said earlier, it's a pretty meaningless gesture. My wife said, it's like recognising Narnia or something. It's recognising a state that doesn't exist. So it's purely performative, it's self-harming, and it has alienated our allies Israel and America, and I don't know what we've gained from it apart from a bit of Jeremy Corbyn Jew-hating, self-congratulatory virtue signalling. It's just disgusting. It's a very low point in British history. I mean, I knew Starmer could stoop low, but I didn't think he'd go this low. I won't make that mistake about him again. I'm appalled, absolutely appalled. Let's go to break. Talking of appalled, lovely link this. I'm also appalled by Fergie, the Duchess of York. We'll find out about her shenanigans in just a second. Stay tuned.
I hate to say it, Julia, we discussed this before. We've got leaders in our democracies who don't know how to threaten and use force, and they don't understand the logic of deterrence. More importantly, they don't think like Russians. They think like Westerners. Yeah. So they think, what would deter us? OK, we'll do that. Russians don't think like that. Yeah. I was listening to a lecture by a Russian general, and I speak Russian, speaking to a staff course a while ago, and a general was asked by a student, how are we going to solve Ukraine? And he simply said, we will throw corpses at it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, I wouldn't normally burden you with the very few highs and very many lows of the awful life of Fergie, the Duchess of York, but I think today we have to make an exception because this is a remarkable situation, an extraordinary situation, that the Duchess of York has today been dropped by 7 children's charities and counting. She's basically being dropped unpersoned. One of the papers said, "Oh, the Duchess of York is being cancelled." No, there's being cancelled as if I say something like a trans woman isn't a woman. A man in a trans woman is a bloke in a dress. You get cancelled for that kind of politically correct howler, if you like. That's being cancelled. We've always cancelled people if, for example, I don't know, they're found guilty of rape or murder. You get cancelled for that kind of thing. We always have done. So let's not confuse what's happened to Fergie with being cancelled for some kind of, woke reason. She's being cancelled because of her abysmal behaviour. She's always made a massive thing on children's charities. She gave an interview. Jeffrey Epstein paid off, one of her many debts. She had a £15,000 credit card bill. He paid it off, I think in 2011 or something. She gave an interview after that as his downfall was unfolding. Oh, tremendous error of judgment. This payment by Jeffrey Epstein on my credit card was approved by the Duke's office, in other words, her awful husband, Andrew. And so, in other words, laying off the blame. Not my fault, not my fault, not my fault. We now know, as revealed in the papers on Sunday, that as she was apologising in this kind of effusive, such an error of judgment, I'm so sorry, I will never speak to that guy again, I'm sorry he came into my life, I made a big mistake. At that same time, she's writing him a private email saying, "I'm really sorry I had to say this, didn't mean it, love you, you're my supreme friend, da 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 da." In other words, I suspect she didn't want to cut off the possible flow of cash. Now, this kind of duplicity is beyond the pale. Now, Fergie has always gotten away with her terrible behaviour, toe-sucking, etc., taking money to sell the royal family down the river and so on and so forth. She's always got away with it because she's a kind of comical figure, not exactly the sharpest pin in the pack, not that bright, kind of a bit of a bull in a giant china shop, a jolly hockey sticks idiot, really, that we all sort of went, oh, well, it's just Fergie, couldn't put a foot right if she tried, and so on and so forth. But I think this story shows a different side to her. This, I think, is a window into her rancid soul. She is a venal, duplicitous woman who has only ever been interested in the contents of her own wallet. And for this, both her and her husband must be exorcised from public life. They were seen driving out of Windsor Great Park today, out of their home, I think in his Range Rover, and she's like hiding in the back, you know, trying to avoid the cameras. And I was thinking, there goes Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. The king is even thinking now, apparently, of cutting both of them out of private royal gatherings, let alone public royal gatherings. Both of them have disgraced themselves to an extraordinary extent, and that's it with Fergie. She's got to go. I don't ever want to hear about this woman again. Do you agree?
I think what is so awkward and cringeworthy about this is what people object to from anyone in public life, which is a glaring discrepancy between what they say in public and what they're actually saying behind the scenes. And it's exactly what Fergie did, replicates exactly what Peter Mandelson did, you know, saying on the one hand, you know, I utterly condemn, you know, I'm just paraphrasing here, utterly condemn this dreadful creature, Jeffrey Epstein, you know, I don't want anything to do with him, you know, having anything to do with him is one of the worst mistakes of my life. And yet privately they're busy writing him letters and emails saying, I am so sorry I had to say that, but you know, you're my best friend and you mean so much to me, and you know, I basically just had to say that to keep the press happy. That's what Peter Mandelson did, that is what Fergie did, and it's really ugly. It's excruciating and comes at just not at a good time for the royals. This is a last thing that the king needs right now, is yet more controversy surrounding his brother and his ex-wife. You know, it's just the end of the road, don't you think, for the Yorks? You know, we've had enough of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. That I just think it's the end of the story for the Duchess and Duke of York. Fergie and Andy, you know, they can go to hell. They're a terrible, terrible couple. And what is interesting, what you were saying about Jeffrey Epstein generally, bringing in Mandelson. Don't forget all of his other acolytes, people like Bill Clinton. Andrew, of course, and so on and so forth. It's remarkable, isn't it, how reluctant and reticent people are to sever ties from someone who could be a source of good money. You know, Epstein bought his friends, and in not cutting him off, I think all of them were just hoping to maybe keep their snouts into the trough, Mandelson including. But Fergie, this is it. She's skated close to the wind. She's sailed close to the wind many times. She's tested the nation's patience, trying to sell the royal family down the river for access. Toe-sucking with that guy Johnny Bryan in Texas. Remember that? While she was supposed to still be married to Andrew. And so on. She's tested our patience many times, but as I say, in the end we've all gone, oh, you know, Fergie, silly old jolly hockey stick, silly old bag, always getting herself into trouble, no idea how to behave, bit gauche, doesn't dress very well, ha ha ha, she's quite funny, isn't she? Well, today, over the weekend, she's not quite funny, she's awful. She's a bad person. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And what I'm saying was in any way wrong, I've never seen charities drop someone so quickly as today. Seven charities have dropped her as patron.
Sorry, Kev, I lost you there for a minute, which was a bit weird. I was thinking I do feel quite sorry for her daughters.
Yeah.
You know, those princesses, I mean, they've just never, ever been able to have a kind of clear run at being junior royals, have they? Minor royals, because they've always been carrying the burden of their parents' antics. You know, primarily their father, who just continues to bring shame on the family all the time. But now also their mother, and it must be really, really difficult for them. And you know, I guess some would say, and the king would probably say, actually, we just don't need, you know, the minor royals. Let's concentrate it down to the few figures that we can really rely on not to bring embarrassment. And it's a shrinking band, isn't it?
It is. It's got Harry to worry about as well. But What a mess, what a mess. And Fergie, I'm afraid that's it. The drawbridge is being pulled up. You must retire from public life along with your awful husband. Isabel, thanks for tonight. I didn't think we were going to see you this week. I know we won't see you for the rest of the week. Look after yourself and we will talk next week. Good luck. That's the great Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. She's in Istanbul and she's got some reporting to do. So we'll bring you her stories this time next week. In the meantime, we're going to go to break now, to the news. And when we come back, Rupert Lowe will join us to discuss some of the big stories of the day. That next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, welcome back. I like that. Lib Dem leader Ed Davey warning that Nigel Farage would mimic Donald Trump's policies if he ever came to power. Good. That's what we want, Ed. You know, get with the programme. Silly sod. Right, for the next half an hour, we're going to spend it in the excellent company of former Reform UK MP, now, of course, a redoubtable independent, the MP for Great Yarmouth, the independent MP for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe. Welcome to the show, Rupert.
Good evening, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Now, I'm sorry about this, but I can't resist it. Now, you sort of fell out with Reform UK. I think it was back in early March, towards the end of February, that kind of thing. And one of the problems...
Well, I think correctly, they fell out with me.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that correction.
I still don't quite understand why, Kevin, but anyway, yeah.
Well, one of the bones of contention in your dispute was, we later learned, that Nigel Farage was unhappy with you espousing the idea of mass deportations. And as I say, I can't resist this, but take a look at this.
Will abolish indefinite leave to remain as a category in this country. The 800,000 people that will get indefinite leave to remain unless this policy is revoked tend to be young, tend to be low-skilled. They are going to be a huge burden on the state. What we do know is that 1 in 6 claimants
So, yeah, that was him today. Here he was back during your days of reform. Check this out, Rupert.
We had a situation, a political difficulty within Reform UK. This does happen to parties. They do have difficulties and problems. We had a problem that one of our MPs, who's no longer an MP, was talking about deporting entire communities, including people who've been born here. And frankly, we found that unacceptable. And so I just did not want, I think you can quote me for another interview, to get dragged down the route of mass deportations at that stage.
Rupert, he also said that the problem with mass deportations that you were advocating was that it was just impossible. It was a practical impossibility. So what do you think when you see, as we played him today, what do you think when you see him today saying, yeah, mass deportations, we're going to get rid of all of them, yes, yes, yes? I mean, isn't this what he told you not to say?
Well, first of all, he's wrong. I'm still an MP. I may not be a Reform MP after they politically assassinated me, but I am an MP. And I mean, it's not unexpected, frankly, Kevin. I mean, Nigel is a politician who blows with the wind. And at the time, he thought he had to sort of hold the centre ground in order to start to control and really challenge the Tory party. What he didn't realise is that actually the British people, the bedrock of decent people in this country, have had enough of mass immigration. I never talked about repatriation. I've always talked about deporting illegal migrants who are either arriving here, living here, foreign criminals, and basically starting there and then deciding where we go from there. Now, Nigel tried to edit a speech I gave in Kemi Badenoch's constituency in North Essex at the end of December. He tried to take out the word mass from my speech where I was advocating mass deportation of illegal migrants. And he also tried to take out from my speech a piece about deporting the families of those who were perpetrating these vile crimes, these rape gangs. The men in the family clearly would have been known to the rest of their family, and if they were, and the family did nothing about it, I was advocating that those people should also be deported if they were dual nationals or indeed foreigners. So I never talked about mass repatriation, so he got that completely wrong. But Nigel is economical with the truth. He has got a history of basically booting anybody out who he thinks is a challenge to him. And I think today, I was talking to my team, it's quite entertaining to watch him shift like the wind and mutate like the AIDS virus in terms of trying to follow the trend of what the British people, what he perceives the British people want. Now, that to me is not the hallmark of somebody who's going to lead us to the promised land. As I've said, my own personal opinion is Nigel can never be and should never be Prime Minister. He has too much history. Having worked with him, I don't think he's interested in policy. He's surrounded by very lightweight people. And my concern, and I expressed this to him, is that I didn't want to be next to him if we didn't have a plan when we won the election, because the British people deserve now to be run and managed and led by a government which effectively does have a plan, does embrace policies that are going to improve the way in which our people live, and isn't just flip-flopping around trying to, if you like, aggrandize themselves. And, I mean, Nigel can't lose. If he's elected as Prime Minister, he certainly won't lose. I question whether the British people will lose, and I conclude, in my view, they probably will do. So I think we want people of principle now. We've got enough liggers in Parliament, enough liggers in the civil service, enough dishonest people in the judiciary. What we now need, Kevin, we need some principle and we haven't got very much principle in the country. That's our problem.
Yeah, but he is literally, he said, his quote about mass deportations that you were advocating. I don't remember you ever saying repatriating people who were born.
I've never said repatriate.
I know you haven't. You were talking about mass deportations. Today he talked about deporting hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants. Back in March, when you were falling out with him and Reform, Farage said that these mass deportations were, and I quote, literally impossible to do. And yet here he is today announcing that he will mass deport hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants. So what he didn't like you saying back in March, he is now saying himself. I mean, I know you find that sort of slightly amusing, but it must be slightly annoying as well.
No, we're not really. I mean, I think he was behind the curve, Kevin, and I think I've been entirely consistent in my view, and I will continue to be consistent, and I continue to believe that if we're going to run the country properly, we now need, or Reform needed policies, it needed a plan, it needed a shadow cabinet. It needed quality people. And the problem is Nigel is not surrounded by quality people. He's surrounded by lightweight people. And after what Zia Yusuf did to me, along with Lee Anderson, I would tell you those people should never be anywhere near power. And Nigel would have known what was going on. The whole thing was, as I say, an example of vile political assassination, which I'm afraid Nigel has done to many people, not least Kilroy Silk, but Ben Habib and Stephen Wolfe. Almost anybody who he perceives is either challenging him or in any way, crowding his... I liken him to a beech tree, Kevin. Nothing grows under a beech tree. So anything that tries to grow under Nigel's beech tree is poisoned by his leaves. So look, it's a very interesting point you raise, and we have been talking about it today, but am I irritated by it? Not particularly. It's pretty predictable.
Do you, Rupert? I mean, I must admit, I'm a supporter of, I admire Nigel Farage. I don't like to pin my flags or my colours to any particular political party. But whatever you think about him generally, do you approve of what he said today? Because I think I did.
I do. I agree. I mean, I've always said indefinite leave to remain. I mean, obviously, we've got two problems. We've got the illegal migrants, and we've got those people living here illegally, and we've got those foreign criminals in our prisons who are costing the taxpayer a fortune. But we've also got this legacy of the Blairite and Cameron and then May and then Boris of legal migration, which quite rightly they've identified as a problem. But if you're in business, you've got to identify those problems that you can deal with first. And while you're dealing with those, you have to make a plan for the next set of problems you've got to deal with. So I agree that indefinite leave to remain after Boris having promised to basically slash immigration, as did Cameron, as did May, they all did, and failed to do it, largely because of all the Blairite heffalump traps that were left by Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. They did nothing to repeal those, and therefore, in Boris's case, it accelerated. And I think Boris, again, is a man who's very good at writing articles, but is he a man of principle and depth? No, I don't think he is. I think some of his articles, if you read them, are very accurate. But is Boris capable of holding a view for more than a week? Probably not.
He's not a conservative. He's not a conservative, Rupert. He's a Lib Dem at best. Just to go back to...
I think I do agree with what they're saying today, and I think the majority of British people agree with what they're saying. But are you going to back people who basically are like straw in the wind? They're not the people who are going to change things for the better.
So even though, Nigel Farage, your position, I would imagine, is with Nigel and what he announced today, better late than never. So even though you and he are now agreeing on mass deportations, will there be any chance of you healing the rift at all?
I don't think so, Kevin. I don't like the way they behave, particularly, I mean, Yusuf made false allegations in a witness statement. So did Lee Anderson. We haven't heard the end of that yet. I've got a few plans for that. That'll become public in the end. It's basically what they did was vile, and to put the country in the hands of people who are capable of behaving like that would be a very dangerous thing. So, I mean, I have nothing against Reform supporters. I think Reform supporters and voters are fundamentally good people seeking change. I don't blame them for that, and they had no part in what happened. A lot of them, indeed, I think, are quite upset about what happened. So no, I don't think Nigel, myself, certainly not Yusuf, Anderson, and certainly not the sort of lightweights like, you know, Dan Dukes, who basically is Nigel's spokesman. No, I could never work with people like that. And that doesn't mean to say that I couldn't, you know, find a home amongst solid Reform supporters, because I think a lot of them are very good people and they share my view that we need change. We need radical change. But we're not going to get that with the wrong leadership, Kevin.
Fair enough, Rupert. Let's.
No, I've set up Restore Britain, which we can talk about. I know we're here to talk ostensibly about, I think.
I need to. Well, we're going to do that in a minute. I need to get your take on what I think is the shameful recognition of Palestine by Britain, by Keir Starmer today. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think Hamas have said it for us, haven't they, by claiming victory. I think what they did on October the 7th was vile. I think the prerequisite for any form of recognition of Palestine, and don't forget the Palestinian people elected Hamas, so they are not entirely clean in this situation. Until they've released every single hostage, we should be holding firm with Israel. I think what they did was vile, and whether or not you agree with what Israel's done subsequently, I think there is no excuse for holding hostages, many of whom have appeared emaciated and in ill health, some of whom have been murdered, many of whom after October the 7th were dragged through the streets and their bodies were mutilated by crowds. I mean, it's pretty vile stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
So no, I'm an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth merchant, and I honestly no. I mean, but Starmer, the Labour Party, our establishment, for some reason they have this sort of fixation with Islam, and I think in Labour's case, they think they rely on the Islamic vote. But as you've probably seen from what we've been posting, we don't think that they're going to keep the Islamic vote. We think that's on its way to Islamic independence and probably Jeremy Corbyn's party in the end.
Do you agree generally then, Rupert, with the charge that what Starmer has done in recognising Palestine, recognising the state of Palestine, God knows what that actually means, where are the borders, who runs it, but in recognising the state of Palestine, do you agree that that is rewarding terrorism, that is rewarding the Hamas atrocity?
Well, yes, Kevin. I mean, as we know, the real sort of arch enemy behind all this is not necessarily Hamas. Hamas is sponsored by Iran, as are Hezbollah. So, you know, I think if you want an example of what happens in a Christian country which allows itself to be taken over by Muslims, just look at Lebanon. I mean, Lebanon, when it got its independence in 1948, was basically a very enlightened Christian country with the best universities in the Middle East. And once the Muslim population went over about 20%, you ended up with civil war, and Lebanon is now a Muslim country. So I think that is a warning sign for everybody. And if you don't love and respect your own culture, and I don't think our leaders love and respect the British people anymore, I think they seem to see the British people as the enemy. They should be serving the British people. It's the British people who built this country into what it is. It's the British people who pay the taxes that funds all these liggers, as I call them, who live on the back of the taxpayer. And there are far too many of them. They don't actually perform a function. They create all sorts of rules, regulations and laws to justify what they do. But there are far too many of them. And they basically, in my view, they get between the wall and the wallpaper, and they don't help individual relationships throughout the country, which ultimately is the backbone of what we all are. And left to our own devices, I think we've got the best, most decent, most creative, most enterprising people on earth. But we've got the most appalling bunch of lightweights now who are running the country, and they are effectively damaging our interests collectively. So I think that's why I set up Restore Britain. The more people who support Restore Britain, the more we can influence the way in which things go, and hopefully influence it so that we end up with a government that does what it's supposed to do and governs in the interests of the electorate.
Absolutely. And as for what it's worth, the way I see it, this is just a reversion by Labour to old-style Corbynism, sort of hating Israel, anti-Semitism, always siding with Islam over Israel.
It's about the Muslim bloc vote, Kevin, largely.
But I mean, I think they pretty much had that anyway. And as you say, they're probably going to lose it to the independents at the next election. So it still begs the question, exactly what did Starmer think he's playing at with this? But we'll leave that.
Well, look, I've said to you before, Starmer is a Haldane Society, Pabloist, human rights lawyer who is totally unfit to be in a position of power. I mean, the Fabian Society runs deep through the Labour Party, and nobody really talks about it enough. So everybody who's listening should research the Fabian Society, look at what Pabloism is, look what the Haldane Society is. I mean, the Haldane Society split in, I think, again, 1948, and Starmer's a member of the very, very communist arm of the Haldane Society. Basically, the sensible lawyers, they became part of a different sort of group.
I just think it's classic left-wing Labour. That's what they do.
You've got Hermer, you've got Starmer, you've got Philippe
Shabana Mahmood, and on the list go.
I mean, just look, Kevin, at the surrender on the Chagos Islands. I mean, as I've said, these people should be in the Tower of London.
I agree with you.
And my friend in the Mauritius tells me they're getting a tax cut on the back of the largesse of the British taxpayer.
Isn't that special? Listen, Rupert, let's go to break, and when we come back, you've written an interesting letter to Newcastle University, and we'll explain all after these messages. So stay tuned, everyone.
hate to say it, Julia, we discussed this before. We've got leaders in our democracies who don't know how to threaten and use force, and they don't understand the logic of deterrence. More importantly, they don't think like Russians. They think like Westerners. So they think, what would deter us? OK, we'll do that. Russians don't think like that. I was listening to a lecture by a Russian general, and I speak Russian, speaking to a staff course a while ago, and a general was asked by a student, how are we going to solve Ukraine? And he simply said, we will throw corpses at it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Great Yarmouth's independent MP, Rupert Lowe. Rupert, you've written to the Vice-Chancellor of Newcastle University. Let's put this in context. Newcastle University has 28,000 students from 130 countries. Credit to diversity. Now, what you have written to the Vice-Chancellor about is, in my view, the extraordinary decision by this university to impose on every single one of these 28,000 students halal meat, as in chicken, beef, lamb, halal, the Islamic way of preparing meat. Now, you quite rightly said, well, in my view, quite rightly said, why should the vast majority have to conform to the religious requirements of the minority? As you quite rightly say in your letter, plenty of people do not want halal meat, whether for cultural, ethical or animal welfare reasons. A lot of us don't like the idea of slitting a poor live animal's throats and letting all the blood run out because apparently that keeps their God happy before you eat the meat. A lot of people don't like that idea. So have you had any response from Newcastle University about their strange decision to impose the religious requirements of a minority of students on the majority of students? Have you had any response yet?
Well, let me first of all pay credit to my team, which is growing fast thanks to our support from the British people. And in this case, Lewis Brackpool is running our whistleblowing line, because I think in Britain, we've still got a bedrock of fundamentally decent people who know the difference between right and wrong. So a lot of this is coming through Lewis Brackpool's whistleblowing line. And I would urge everybody, not just on religious slaughter or whether it's halal, kosher, whatever, any other form of wrongdoing by any state institution, please do contact Lewis and tell us about it. We've set up a way of effectively allowing people to do that without being outed. So you can feel free that it's in total confidence. And I can tell you, it isn't just Newcastle. There are other universities, there are other private schools, and we've even got one major government institution who we have now written to. They've tried to tell us a bit of a porky, but we've gone back because we've had further evidence that they were doing it. And we'll be able to hopefully come out with that too. But as you know, I'm a farmer, so I've raised and spoken about halal slaughter in Westminster Hall debates. The question really, Kevin, as you quite rightly say, is why is the default position apparently becoming that we all eat halal slaughtered or religious slaughtered meat rather than meat that's been slaughtered through our own abattoirs? And it appears that the easy position for the slaughterhouses, and now I would say to everybody, unless you know the slaughterhouse code on a lot of the meat that you buy in supermarkets, the chance is you're buying and eating religiously slaughtered meat, because there is now a regulatory arbitrage. So our abattoirs are more highly regulated in terms of our slaughter, where they use a huge dose of electrocution to kill the animal before it's slaughtered, whereas in halal they have this sort of front where they pretend to give it a small stun, which actually very often gives them an epileptic fit, so that when they actually cut their throat, the blood is still being pumped out. So it's a front. So my view is that the meat we eat should default to being what 94% of us are used to eating, which is normally slaughtered meat in our own abattoirs. But what's happening is, in more and more institutions, the default position is halal is being served because it's easier, because there's a regulatory arbitrage, and ultimately, we haven't so far had transparent labeling, which allows people to make a decision for themselves. So my own view is, first of all, we're going to get an answer from all these people once we've identified that it is happening. And we are getting whistleblowers coming forward, so we know it is happening. And it's happening.
And it's definitely happening at Newcastle University. We know that.
In our opinion, yes, and Southampton University and other private schools, which again, we're getting more and more information on this. But the default position, as I say, should be, is we should label everything very clearly, so that those people who do have an objection to eating either halal or kosher or any other form of religiously slaughtered meat should have the opportunity of being absolutely clear and transparent about what they're eating. But I can tell you, you need to know the slaughterhouse code before you can tell that now. And it's actually a national scandal. So I've said to my wife, do not buy any meat from any supermarket, only the local butcher if you know how it's been slaughtered. Because I object. If you ever watch a video on religiously slaughtered...
well, a lot of people want to end halal slaughter.
It's pretty vile. I have no problem with Muslims eating halal, but I have a problem with the default position being that the British public are eating halal meat. I think that is dishonest.
As you say in your letter, Rupert, universities should not be in the business of enforcing religious dietary standards on everyone. The answer is straightforward. Restore non-halal options immediately, clearly label what is halal and what is not, and let people choose for themselves. What the entire student body, all 28,000 of them, are being subjected to here is the subordination of everyone else to the requirements of Islam.
Well, Islam, and in terms of kosher actually has no stun at all. It's literally a cut throat. So it's religiously slaughtered meat, you're right. What's happening is the minority position is being deviously forced upon the majority. So personally, I think labeling first, so people can make their decision. But in the end, why should 94% of the country have to suffer this when they're used to basically eating meat killed in our abattoirs, which is, yes, slaughtered, but slaughtered in a more
humane way. Yeah, exactly right. Well, listen, Rupert, will you keep us in touch with whatever response you have from Newcastle University and indeed other bodies that are imposing halal meat on their customers? Will you let us know?
We'll keep you posted, Kevin, but we want to be fair to everybody, and we want to, once they've answered the question, I think a lot of them are reluctant to answer because it will set a huge hair running and it will cause them problems. So we are finding it difficult to get blood out of the stone at this stage.
You can put it that way.
We will get it. We will get it.
OK, Rupert. Well, listen, as soon as you do, let us know. Good to have you on the show tonight. As always, it is always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. That is Rupert Lowe, of course, the independent MP for Great Yarmouth, former Reform UK. What do you think about this? I mean, he's got a good point here, hasn't he, about Newcastle University. He's talking about other universities doing this, other public bodies. You go to their canteens, their cafeterias, whatever. You want some chicken or some beef or whatever. And if you're not careful, you'll be eating halal beef or halal chicken or halal lamb, and they didn't tell you. Because everyone has to have the Islamic religious dietary requirement. Even though, as Rupert says, 94% of us don't like the idea of that. What is going on here? What is going on? 03444991000. I mean, I don't like halal slaughter. I don't like kosher slaughter at all. I think it's very cruel to animals. But that notwithstanding, it is what it is. It is out there. And as the law stands now, it should be a legal option for Muslims, for Islamic people, and kosher should be a legal option for Jewish people. So when they go to the cafeteria, there should be, perhaps, if they've got a good choice, kosher meat, halal meat, and non-kosher, non-halal meat, shouldn't there? So that if you don't want to have halal meat, you can have ordinary meat if you like. Shouldn't that be the case? As opposed to making everyone have halal meat. A lot of people, as Rupert pointed out, have serious moral objections to halal slaughter and indeed kosher slaughter. Let me know what you think about that. 03444991000. When we come back, we'll talk about your party. Not yours, not mine. You know, that party that hasn't got a name yet. Old Jezza Corbyn and Zara Sultana's fruit and nutcase party. We'll talk about them. They're falling apart at the seams. We'll also talk about a couple of Labour problems as well. That next, stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, your party, they still haven't got a name, actually. I think your party's quite a good name, but they don't seem to like that much. This, of course, is the breakaway party from the Labour Party, the lefties, if you like, the extremists, run by kind of Jeremy Corbyn, old magic grandpa, and the youthful Zara Sultana. These two have been fighting like rats in a sack ever since they started this party. Both of them are threatening to sue each other. Zara Sultana last week accused Corbyn of overseeing a sexist boys' club that was locking women out of the founding of this new left-wing party. As a result of that, Jeremy Corbyn said he was going to sue her. Then she said she's going to sue him. But they still seem to be you know, maintaining a very loose, if fractious, relationship. But just in case you thought that your party was, you know, chaotic and not very well organised or anything like that, I'm going to refute that by showing you Zara Sultana addressing a meeting in Brixton, firing on all cylinders. This is impressive. Watch this.
That isn't a microphone. Cool. I mean, there's something there. It's fine. I'm gonna try to hold my papers and the microphone at the same time. This is gonna be exciting. Hi, everyone. I am so grateful. There are so many people here. There's so many people in the room next door. And I know that is it is. I mean, I don't. I'm so sorry. Hello. There's some weird feedback, so I'll move this. I'm so sorry. You know, this is really grassroots when we're having all of these technical issues. This isn't like a polished PR exercise. This is really authentic. Hi everyone, my name's Zara Sultana and I'm so glad that you've taken time out of your Friday night to be here in Brixton to talk about and be part of this amazing new party that we are all building together with 800,000 other people. When I first got into politics, I definitely didn't think I would be part of this process with Jeremy Corbyn, building this left-wing grassroots democratic party, and it is truly the honour of my life, and I'm so glad to be able to share that with you.
What a well-oiled machine. Let's talk to former Tory MP for Bracknell, James Sunderland. Welcome, James.
Welcome, Kevin. I love those pictures. She's the gift that keeps giving.
Both of them are. They're both threatening to sue each other, and yet they carry on sort of just about representing this new party. They haven't even got a name for it. They're now sort of they've got graphics, your party, and yet they still denounce that as a name. I don't think it's a bad name at all. But that notwithstanding, and notwithstanding the chaos you saw there of Zara's meeting in Brixton, 800,000 Labour Party members have signed up or are interested in joining this breakaway group. So for all its comedy, for all the laughable elements of what's going on there, Jeremy Corbyn, you know, throughout his career has never really ever put a foot right, and she's showing every sign of following in his chaotic footsteps, old Zara. But for all of that, they are going to be a major thorn in Labour's side, aren't they?
Absolutely, and bring it on. I think your party's wonderful. I won't hear a word said about them because ultimately they will split Labour. We all know that Labour won't be a problem at the next election. They're dead and buried now. It's been a dreadful government. 14, 15 months in, it's been absolute chaos. As a Conservative, we should be much more concerned, I think, about reform. So ultimately, I think that your party will do us a real favour.
Let's talk also another. So, in a sense, I mean, this is a growing threat to Labour, and I think it's going to be major. I really do. Just as reform, if you like, have split the right, your party is definitely splitting the left on quite a large scale. Meanwhile, back at number 10, back in Downing Street, in the chaos of Downing Street, I mean, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff there, is under threat. Apparently Starmer very upset with the trouble he seems to be in left, right and centre, blaming his Chief of Staff for this poor strategy. But as stories emerged at the weekend, it's coming from this interesting book called The Fraud, which is written by a guy called Paul Holden. It's supposed to contain lots and lots of bombshell revelations about Keir Starmer's Labour administration. But one of them is that, one of the allegations, I should say, is that Morgan McSweeney set up this kind of covert group called Labour Together, and they were supposed to be a mild group talking about socialist principles and everything. But he stands accused of using that as a cover for collecting £700,000 worth of donations, which were actually used to get Keir Starmer into the top slot, to get him to be Labour leader and then onwards towards Downing Street. So he stands accused, Morgan McSweeney, of misusing £700,000 worth of donations, hiding them from their real purpose. Now, we don't know what his response is to this. Obviously, Kemi Badenoch's calling for a police investigation. You know, as I say, no response from him. But if this is true, this is big trouble, isn't it?
I think it is big trouble. Look what happened to the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon. That's pretty serious. When David Lammy says nothing to see here, of course, he means the complete opposite. There's everything to see here. And I think that Kemi Badenoch is absolutely right to press this. If there's an allegation that that sort of money was hidden from the Electoral Commission, then it's a criminal allegation, clearly without prejudice. It's important that it is investigated, that the Electoral Commission takes this really seriously, and that if there are offences committed, then the full force of the law needs to be brought to bear. But again, my instinct here is that there's no smoke without fire, and that we should be scratching a bit deeper.
Notwithstanding this potential problem, this potential massive problem, Morgan McSweeney's in a world of trouble anyway, isn't he? I mean, Keir Starmer was reported to have had a stand-up row with him about the Mandelson affair, because Morgan McSweeney said, oh, you got to get Peter into that ambassador's job in Washington. And we all know where that led to. Starmer, after PMQs, was it the week before last now, raging at Morgan McSweeney, apparently in the office, you're supposed to protect me from this sort of thing. And Morgan McSweeney said, I am trying to protect you. But you get the sense that as this government seems to unravel, fall apart at the seams, day in, day out, that the Downing Street operation is in deep trouble, is in a world of problems, and that McSweeney may not be long for this world. Would you agree with that interpretation?
I think so. Who is running the government? That's a question that we've had to ask of previous governments too. You know, what exactly is his role? How powerful is he? How close to Starmer is he? But historically, there's been a very useful parallel with Dominic Cummings. I mean, go back 4 or 5 years. I mean, look at that relationship and how it went awfully bad. I'm no fan of Cummings particularly. I haven't really worked with him much at all. But the parallels are clear for all to see. And when the advisor becomes the story, he's clearly a distraction and probably needs to go. And just imagine this for a second. If he holds a grudge against Starmer, if there is a fallout, if he's got information on Starmer, like Cummings did against Boris, then the Prime Minister could be in a very tricky spot. So I think this has much further to unfold. There's clearly some unravelling to be had, and it'll be very salacious, no doubt, too.
Yeah, and if you add that to the fact that the now ex-ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson, is gunning for Starmer as well, very furious about his defenestration. Starmer, going forward, life is not going to be very comfortable for our Prime Minister, I would suggest. This book is interesting, this book by Paul Holden. It is said there are many more bombshell revelations in it, so we can't wait for the publication of The Fraud. Well, James, it's really good to talk to you again. Let's get you on again soon. That's James Sunderland, the former Tory MP for Bracknell. When we come back, we're going over to the States. We're going to talk to our friend Errol Moorcoach, who was one of the 100,000 or so mourners who turned up in Glendale in Arizona to pay their respects at the funeral, the massive funeral of Conservative campaigner Charlie Kirk. That next, stay tuned.
What possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak or I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's obsessed by what he calls the two-state solution.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now at the State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona last night, 63,000 people squeezed, packed into that vast arena to pay their last respects to Charlie Kirk, who was, of course, assassinated a couple of weeks back in Utah. The Conservative campaigner close to Donald Trump, close to J.D. Vance, close to this American government. Donald Trump was there, J.D. Vance was there, anybody was there. 63,000 in the stadium. They think as many as 40,000 more may have flocked to an additional space for the overflow crowd. So a huge turnout. Well, let's welcome someone who was there, who was a good friend of Charlie Kirk, a good friend of this show as well, Errol Moorcoach from the Republican Overseas Organisation. Welcome, Errol. Before we get your thoughts, let's remind ourselves a couple of the highlights. A load of speakers paid tribute to poor Charlie. Well, first of all, this is his heartbroken wife finding it in her heart to forgive his killer.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life. On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Astonishing, absolutely astonishing. A devout Christian, Erica, as was Charlie, of course. The president, Donald Trump, did not find it in his heart to forgive the assassinator of Charlie Kirk. Here's the president.
Did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica.
And he went on to say that he doesn't forgive Tyler Robinson, that was the name of that little tow rag who killed poor Charlie. Well, look, Errol, you were there. I mean, from what I see, vast. What an astonishing event. Tell us what it was like to be there.
It was incredible. It was, I can't really place a point or time, and I've talked with other people, especially people older than me, and especially in religious orders and political movements that have ever had an experience like this. This was a Trump rally mixed with the Holy Spirit, mixed with just quite a lot of just pure unadulterated love. People praying together, people welcoming each other, and showing that Charlie's memory obviously wasn't extinguished on that day. You know, oftentimes people brought up the biblical phrase, paraphrase, and effectively, the tyrant when he dies is forgotten. The martyr when he dies is, he's just started to be remembered. And I think it became very clear, especially with the leadership that Erica Kirk showed there, to extend forgiveness, something that, I think all of us were moved by, regardless of the different abilities of people to do what she did. all of the emotion there was of emotion of love, of forgiveness, of kindness, of compassion, and it was what Charlie would have wanted. And on top of it all, after losing their founder and leader, Turning Point USA pulled off the biggest event in their ever history. So I think that the future of this organization not only is in strong hands and in capable hands, but it's also going to run amok compared to what they thought killing Charlie Kirk would do to the Turning Point organization.
And that's what Erica said. She now runs Turning Point, her husband's organization. And she said after the assassination that these people, the killer of my husband, have no idea what they have unleashed. No idea. And I think it's going to make the movement twice as strong, if not stronger. Am I right?
I think you're absolutely right. And what's incredible to see and warms my heart is that people are doubling down on peaceful dialogue. You're seeing young people applying to open new chapters. I think they're up to 63,000 new chapter applications. You're seeing revival in the Turning Point UK chapter. They're getting back on their feet now that we've got all this support. We have Elon Musk coming in and saying that he is going to be providing support. And then you saw Elon actually, it was quite nice. We saw Elon walk in and all of a sudden him and Trump are making peace, and Elon tweets for Charlie. And one of the last things, not tweets, X'd, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And one of the last things that Charlie had talked about was that he needed Trump and Elon to make up in
and they shook hands, didn't they?
They shook hands, and Trump posted, Trump and the White House and Elon posted. So, I mean, that's a great thing just for everybody kind of realizing these petty differences we've had. There's been a lot of squabbles inside the Conservative Party, whether that be about Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, and tariffs, all things. But when somebody like this, one of the good guys is shot down, actually bearing witness to his beliefs, and without any fear, despite the fact of the threats against him, you have a situation where the first time in American history that you have a First Amendment civil rights leader executed. And that stopped the U.S. government to the day where every single meaningful person in the United States, from the Secretary of War to the President to all of our cabinet members, were there in that room. That was the safest room in the world to be in. We had F-16s above us, attack choppers. You were not going to get anywhere close to that building. That building was protected by the full might of the U.S. Army and Jesus Christ. And that's what we saw on that.
Going to move on to something that's just broken. This is breaking news. Bad news for comedy. Jimmy Kimmel's show has been reinstated to ABC. So if you want to be bored and put to sleep late at night, all you Americans, it's back. Jimmy Kimmel Live is back on ABC. Do you think ABC have crumbled, have capitulated to all these famous people saying this was an attack on freedom of speech? Because what I thought about it was this was a responsible broadcaster saying this presenter lied to the people of America. He said that Tyler Robinson was part of Donald Trump's group, was a MAGA supporter. This was a lie. A responsible broadcaster can't allow its star presenters to lie to the people, can it?
I agree that it was a lie, and a scurrilous, low-down one at that, and that is the type of person Jimmy Kimmel is. He's somebody who gets 1 million less views than Stephen Colbert got, and his average demographic is 68 to 69. No disrespect to anybody in that demographic, but the idea that these people are touching young voters is kind of, counterintuitive to who they are. I will say this, Sinclair Broadcasting took him off, and they're going to put the 1-hour Charlie Kirk special. That's the equivalent of a spanking from an adult to a child. I guess maybe Jimmy Kimmel has some sort of contractual, a situation here where he can live out his contract, but I think he's on borrowed time, not because he's a foul-mouthed person, not because he's a hateful liar, but because fundamentally he sucks at his job. He's not good at
he's so bad, isn't he?
So time will tell. Maybe he'll run out of his contract, but they're not going to renew him. I mean, he gets less views than YouTubers. It's not a business model.
Yeah, so. and all for a measly $48 million a year. I mean, it's just not fair, is it? I mean, I was about to say Jimmy Kimmel's about as funny as a funeral, but that wouldn't really be appropriate given what we're talking about. But you know what I mean. He's not funny, and I think you and I discussed this last week. What I don't understand, I've only got a few seconds left, is why all these late-night TV talk show hosts in America have turned their programs into the sort of television equivalent of the Democrat convention. I don't understand it. People don't want these politics, their political views imposed on them. Listen, Errol, are you coming back now to London? When are you coming back?
Well, I'm on my way to Nantucket for a wedding, and after that, I'll probably make my way across.
Right, OK, I've got to buy you a beer. OK, we'll see you back in London. Thanks for joining us, Errol. It's always a pleasure. Errol Moorcoach there, friend of Charlie Coate. He was very close with him. When we come back, Kinsey Schofield on the Royals, more Harry. Stay tuned for that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're still in America. We're going to go to LA now and talk to the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I know you're at your friend Charlie's funeral, but we've just discussed this with Errol Moorcoach, so I'll leave you to reflect on your own thoughts about this. But let's talk about Prince Harry and indeed Meghan, particularly Harry. Now, we've been seeing all over the weekend, there are these reports saying, oh, well, you know, after this, he got sat down with the king, you know, hadn't seen his dad for 19 months, they had tea and cakes and everything was great. And therefore, it's quite clear that Harry is on his way to being welcomed back into the warm embrace of the British royal family, of his own family. Now, this kind of coincided with a spin doctor scheme planned by Prince Harry to paint himself as someone who was coming in from the cold. So you wonder where all those stories came from. But they were so forthright. One of the papers was just full of it. The thaw, it's over. You know, he's back. The king loves him. They all want him back. He's going to do some royal duties. He's talking about taking some of the load off his brother William. Yeah, it's been an awkward 5 or 6 years, but he's back. Well, so extreme were these stories. And I read them, I'm sure you did as well. I was like, really? Really? This seems a bit OTT. Well, it looks as if the royal spin machine, if you like, has hit back. They've hit back in no uncertain terms. And they have said that the idea that Harry can return to the royal family and do a sort of half in, half out working royal job, sometimes coming back to stand in for his brother, do a few engagements, then go back to America. They said diplomatically are wide of the mark. And one royal source, one palace insider said, Harry seems to have mistaken tea and cakes with his dad for the Treaty of Versailles. So in other words, these stories that the feud with Harry is all but over, it's just nonsense, aren't they? I mean, he has not evaporated 5, 6, 7 years of abysmal behaviour in America, has he?
No, and I think it's important to look at what the ultimate objective might be. We've discussed a couple of different reasons over the last few months, one being money. Harry and Meghan, I mean, no matter how they tried to spin the evolution of their relationship with Netflix, it was not a win for Harry and Meghan when Netflix came back and said, you know what, instead of handing you a huge check for, you know, mediocre work, we actually just want to see what you want to do ahead of time. And if we decide to go through with it, hey, you know, yay. And if not, it actually doesn't cost us a dime. That Netflix deal was a huge downgrade. So is Harry, as the Daily Beast put it a few weeks ago, is Harry sniffing around for some sort of settlement in case he were to lose his father, because he knows he's never going to be able to ask Prince William for a hand when it comes to anything financial? Absolutely not. Could it be to change public perception? He's one of the least most popular royals, you know, hanging around at the bottom with Prince Andrew, who hasn't, you know, reignited hatred towards him thanks to these Sarah Ferguson emails. But we found out over the weekend, according to Tom Sykes of the Daily Beast, that while Prince Harry was in the UK, he stopped by Eton to put his child's name down, Archie, as potentially attending Eton. Yeah. Now, when Tom Sykes initially reached out to the Sussexes, they gave him some vague answer. And once he actually published the article, they fought back and they tried to say, no, that Prince Harry is completely happy with his life in America. But this is not the only story we've heard over the last few weeks of Prince Harry considering bringing his children to the UK to go to school. I think it's less about Harry wanting his children to have a relationship with their cousins and more about the safety. I think that Harry and Meghan are concerned for their children in American schools, which I completely understand. But I do believe that Prince Harry was probably sniffing around Eton to make sure that if they decide that they want Archie to go there, he can go there. And I think that the bigger ultimate objective in all of this leaking from Team Sussex to improve Harry's image and I think it's to try to win over the UK public so that transition could happen back over to the UK. And I also believe reports from Rebecca English and The Telegraph that suggest that Harry's team is just trying to cause trouble between King Charles and Prince William.
Yeah, on account of there have been, again, coinciding with Harry's charm offensive, Love Me Do, his tour of the charities off to Ukraine, doing selfless work.
Which, like, by the way, this is a 40-something-year-old guy. You know, I don't think that the 40-something-year-old guy playing swords with, you know, balloons with children, like, that was cute 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Well, it was all part of the plan that he wanted to endear himself to the people of Britain who have fallen spectacularly out of love with him. They don't like him anymore. He's now talking about 4 or 5 trips back to Britain every year to regularly see his father, to participate in public events, what he calls public events. Well, we don't want him to. The people of Britain don't want him to do that. But you're right, just as he's launching this charm offensive, Love Me Do, Stop Hating Me Please, out come stories suspiciously at the same time that the king, far from being fed up with his son Harry, is far more upset with William because, according to these stories, the king doesn't think William works hard enough. He doesn't do enough royal functions.
And that his branding, his particular branding about wanting to be a more hands-on father is somehow an insult to King Charles. And every time you and I discuss this, we say, as a disclaimer, and this is not an insult to King Charles, but Prince William is a much more hands-on parent. We've always said that. I mean, there's not one moment where you and I have this exchange about Prince William being a really good dad where we don't say, and that's not an insult to King Charles. Prince William's in a completely different scenario and has different priorities, and that's okay.
So these stories being briefed about William, oh, the king, it's not Harry that the king's upset with, it's William. Well, you know, where do we suspect these stories are coming from? We suspect they're coming from Harry's camp, from Team Harry. As you say, I think it's partly aimed towards just causing problems for William, but partly aimed towards trying to depict Harry as the hero of the hour, the forgiven hero of the hour. And as courtiers are saying, listen, it's going to take a lot more than a few happy, snappy pictures at charities and going to Ukraine and saying my dad's doing great to solve the problems that he's caused over 5 years of appalling behaviour towards the royal family in America. It's, as I said to you last week, Kinsey, he's such a sort of narrow bandwidth guy that he seems to think, you know, the most appalling behaviour can be forgiven if you smile for the cameras and say, oh, look, charity, oh, my dad's great. He's got a lot more to do than just this, hasn't he?
Well, how much of this reaction, this clarification that Harry's not trying to show up his brother, but is trying to show what a valuable asset he could be, is Harry and Meghan responding to our criticism that this is Harry trying to bulldoze and force the half in, half out? Because no matter what, that is what this looks like. The Queen specifically said, no half in, no half out. And what does Harry do? Continuously faux royal tours, sometimes where he shows up in different countries and with his wife, and they hold hands with children. While they're wearing like $50,000 worth of jewelry alone. And, you know, so like, I wonder if this clarification that, no, hey guys, look, it's just him showing what could be, is them trying to stop the bleeding when you've got Kevin and Kinsey screaming from the rooftops, like, guys, this is Harry trying to force the half in, half out. Whether the royal family agrees or not, all he's trying to do is convince the American public, where him and his wife are pursuing commercial ventures, that he still has some little association with the British royal family, because that is what they monetize in the States.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the idea, I mean, that somehow or other, as was quoted, that Harry could take some of the load off his brother William, do some of William's busy appointments, busy engagements. I mean, can you imagine William saying, oh yeah, that's fine, Harry can stand in for me? That's never going to happen, is it? And in terms of any thawing between the royal family and Harry, if there's a very, very slight thawing, it's with his dad, but only just. The rest of the family, especially William and Catherine, just don't want to know, do they?
If this were a job and not a family, this guy would have been fired. They would have changed the passwords to his email accounts. They would have changed his passcode to walk into the building. They would have taken his key card. They potentially would have sued him for libel, and they would have never talked to him again. His behavior has been so appalling over the last 5 years. Selling company, basically the firm, selling institutional company secrets, disparaging said company in a huge public forum, disturbing, being very destructive to said firm company's reputation. The only thing that keeps this guy in the loop is the fact that he shares DNA with these people. But otherwise, if you think about the royal family and the monarchy as a business, his behavior has been so destructive that there's no way anyone would forgive him for what he's done.
Absolutely. Every time I look at the way he behaves, what we're witnessing right now, there's something of the kind of child about him. You know, in other words, the Queen told him, you can't, he wants to do half in, half out. He wants to go and smoke dope in California and then get on planes and come back and cut a few ribbons, open a few libraries and all that and play the royal again. The Queen told him, you can't do that. The King has told him, you can't do that. He's being told again this week, you can't do that. And yet he stamps his feet like a little kid. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You won't stop me. That's what he's like, isn't he?
It's very much like that, but we've seen that throughout this entire process, even the Oprah Winfrey interview. The Oprah Winfrey interview, I think we sometimes forget, happened days after the royal family officially decided and announced that Harry's, it was a temporary sabbatical. Remember when they first announced Megxit, they were like, we're going to try this.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the royal family comes back and says, we've decided that this is going to be the way things are full time, not giving Harry and Meghan the option to debate what comes next. The royal family said, we've decided that this is the way things are going to go moving forward, and we're stripping Harry of all of these titles and all of these things. And that sit down with Oprah Winfrey was an act of revenge. It was an angry reaction to not getting their way. I mean, you can just listen to their words and look at their faces, and you see that this is a response to not getting their way. So I think that we're not seeing a lot of growth and maturity from Harry. Obviously, that's very disappointing. But again, I can't stress enough that I think it's, at the end of the day, we found out not too long ago, I believe it was maybe Vanity Fair, maybe Page Six, but somebody sourced from the Sussex that Harry is going to be releasing some type of commercial venture here pretty soon. I still think that all of this is theater, because he's got to pander to the American audience that thinks he still has a relationship with the British royal family.
Yeah. And what you were saying earlier, Kinsey, about this guy. You know, this guy fought this extremely expensive legal battle against his father's government, the British government, to get armed police guards protection whenever he comes back to Britain for him, for Meghan and his family. You know, this was his cause célèbre for, what was it, over a year.
He was slaying his dragons. Remember, he told us
dragons of the media.
Again, talking about what a grown-up this guy is.
Yeah, but when you yeah, that's right, slaying the dragons of the media and all that. But when you think about it, so now we learn he's thinking of, he wants to come back 4 or 5 times a year. I don't suppose he'll ever bring Meghan, but he may well want his kids to go to school here. He said, during this legal battle, well, you know, Britain is lethally dangerous, and what you're doing here by not giving my family police armed protection when we come back is you're meaning that it means that I can never bring my children to my home country to show them where I grew up. Just a few months on, a couple of months on, what do we learn? He's thinking of sending his kids to public school, to private school here in Britain. So much for their safety then. And he is thinking of coming back 5 times a year. That's ridiculous. You can't believe this guy, what he says from one day to the next, can you?
Well, yeah, I could go on. I have started a list of the hypocrisy. One being never complain, never explain, how he complains about the royal family, that mantra. But when it comes to African Parks charity or anything that reflects negatively on him, he seems to he seems to be pretty tight-lipped. But when it comes to Eton, the argument, yeah, I understand that your point is he's a hypocrite, and I believe that too. But when it comes to the Eton argument, I do believe that he recognizes that because his cousin would be, Archie's cousin would be going there, and so many important children that are the children of government officials and, you know, just high profile children are going to be at this school. Eton is probably the safest place in the world for Archie at the end of the day. I mean, truly, Eton is especially compared to American schools. Is Harry going to pay a bodyguard to stand outside of Archie's classroom for the next 18 years? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that the reality?
No, but what it does mean is when he said, I can never bring my children or send my children.
He was full of it.
It was a crock. It was an absolute crock of crap.
He was gunning for he was gunning again for sympathy. That's his go-to, his victimhood card.
Yeah.
That is become his entire brand, victimhood. He wanted the people sitting at home to go, oh, poor Harry. I understand why he's acted like an absolute ass for the last 5 years.
Absolutely. So everything, this is for him and Meghan, isn't it? Everything is always someone else's fault. It's never their fault. Let's move on to Meghan, shall we? She apparently is said to be quaking in her boots because her former best friend from Canada, Jessica Mulroney, has apparently sealed a deal to write her tell-all biography. Jessica insists she will not tell all about her friendship, her broken friendship with Meghan. Meghan dropped her after the killing of George Floyd because apparently Jessica failed to support Black Lives Matter enough and was accused of a kind of white privilege. So Meghan dropped her like a stone. Jessica says that her tell-all biography will not tell anything about her friendship with Meghan. Well, the publishers, I would suggest, have other ideas. You know, all due respect to Jessica Mulroney, but who the hell is she? There's only one interesting thing about Jessica Mulroney.
Well, her husband is a celebrity in Toronto.
Who? Oh yeah, again, I
Ben,
come back.
Well, ex-husband, they just separated.
Is a celebrity in Toronto? Wow.
Yeah. And her, well, I think, I mean, I'm not privy. I guess I've been made fun of for saying this in the past, but I've heard he's like Canada's Ryan Seacrest, and I don't know who that would be on your side of the pond. But
I hardly know who Ryan Seacrest is.
Oh, an entertainment reporter.
Yeah, well, I know him. Yeah, okay.
And then, but Ben Mulroney is the son of a prime minister, and so Jessica was very close to Justin Trudeau when he was prime minister, and his wife, who he has since separated from and now is apparently occasionally seeing Katy Perry, file that under not on my 2025 bingo card. But she was she was a celebrity stylist and host. And so she actually would go on Good Morning America, and she had a wedding program where she'd style women for their weddings. And her star absolutely rose thanks to her association with Meghan. And some suggest, and Jessica allegedly, according to reports, has suggested too, that there was some envy from Meghan. It was less about the scandal that happened during the BLM movement, and more about the fact that Jessica's star rose thanks to her association with Meghan Markle. So she had the regular Good Morning America gig talking about style and fashion. And Meghan, meanwhile, was in hiding post-Megxit and wasn't able to be a talk show host like we clearly see she wanted to be thanks to With Love Meghan. And some say that Meghan just kind of used this scandal as an out because she was hostile that Jessica had elevated herself through her association with Meghan.
All of that I take on board, but the publishers, they'll want one thing out of Jessica Mulroney. The story of her friendship with Meghan and the story that went wrong. And I suspect that is the story that will be in the book, no matter what Jessica says now. Apparently, Meghan is quaking in her boots over the prospect of this book. I mean, if Jessica does spill all, it's going to be a big one, isn't it?
I don't know if she will, but can I say something sort of salacious? And this is
Please.
This is a tinfoil hat conspiracy from Kinsey Schofield, but read Tom Bower's revenge. How often is Jessica Mulroney one of the only people in the room with Meghan Markle through some of these anonymous source stories? And I haven't talked to Tom about this. I love him. I have not asked Tom who his sources are, but read Tom Bower's Revenge and take note of how often Jessica Mulroney is one of the few people in the room with Meghan Markle, are in the midst of the scuffle with Catherine, Princess of Wales or whatever, and ask yourself who the source might be in Tom Bower's book throughout his anonymous sources. That's my tinfoil hat theory.
That's interesting.
Do I think she's willing to talk? Yes. Do I think she's willing to talk on the record? I don't know, because I think she'd love a big payday, but I also think she values the relationship she has with high-profile people, and I wonder if she's willing to jeopardize that by spilling her guts in a book, because Harry and Meghan did. And how many high-profile people still associate with Harry and Meghan?
Good point.
Very few.
Good point. But if Jessica does spill the beans, if she does tell all, it's almost certain to be a very uncomfortable experience for the Duchess of Sussex, isn't it?
I mean, yes. I mean, Meghan has tried to rewrite history so often that we get caught up in was your dad taking you to the $20 club sandwich expensive deli in Beverly Hills after ballet class, or were you eating at the $4.99 salad bar at the Sizzler? I mean, that is the scope of Meghan Markle's constant contradictions when it comes to her history. So if Jessica Mulroney can tell me more about Trevor Ingleson, who will never talk, I will pre-order that book. But will she give us the truth about why there was a blow up during Meghan Markle's wedding preparation? Did she, Jessica Mulroney, as it's alleged, did she gang up against Catherine, the Princess of Wales? I'd love to know the truth behind those stories. But if she's just going to give us a little Meghan Markle, but make it all vanilla and no really good intel, I'm going to skip this one.
Yeah, exactly. As I say, I hear what you say about Jessica, but, you know, we're talking about an international market. You're talking about a massive market in Britain. And let me tell you, no one in Britain has the faintest idea, really, who Jessica Mulroney is, but they would be fascinated in her revelations about Meghan. So my guess is if Jessica writes this book, Meghan's going to be in it more than she would want to be. Let's hope that is the case. In the meantime...
Also, Jessica, if you're watching this, please tell me if you have the dog that Meghan Markle left in Canada. Who has the damn dog? Okay? Meghan Markle left one of her rescue pets in Canada, and I'm desperate to know if is it alive? Did Meghan offer any sort of medical help? You know, when she just dumped this dog off, did she say, I'm going to pay for all future vet bills? I'm curious to know those details as well.
Yeah, I would love to know that as well. You're a dog lover. You've got 5 dogs, haven't you? You know, I'm a big dog lover.
But I think you were counting the boyfriend. Only 4 actual physical dogs.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at, Kinsey, you, me, dog lovers, people with dogs, the idea of just leaving your dog with someone else and heading off to another country, it's just preposterous, isn't it?
No way. Absolutely not. I FaceTime with my dogs when I'm not home. Yeah, no way.
Yeah, well, you must meet my dog one day. That'll put you off dogs. Seriously. Kinsey, fantastic to talk to you. We'll talk again on Thursday. Thank you so much. That's Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. We better go straight to break. When we come back, we've got lots of calls. We've got some WhatsApp voice notes, I think, and I'll read some of your messages out. So much still to come. Stay tuned.
the other thing that's absolutely extraordinary about this is that everybody who's there talks. I mean, there's awful things happening in that war. I don't want to deny that. But this won't make one iota of difference to one Palestinian child or individual or so on. It strengthens Hamas's control over the region because they can claim this as a victory internally. So for the ordinary Palestinians, it doesn't do anything either. What good does it do?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In half an hour or so, it is Harry Cole Saves the West, the new show from The Sun's former political editor, now their editor-at-large, I think, over in the States, Harry Cole. So Harry Cole Saves the West at 10 o'clock, and then Petri Hosking comes on at 11 p.m. So stick around. Now, I've got tons of WhatsApp voice notes, so I'll try and plough through them because I always promise that I'll play them all out. So I'll try and stick to my pledge. Here's Kelvin on the migrants.
Good evening, Kevin. Do you think it's fair that people who are suffering with disabilities and suffering pain all day should be forced into work to get them off the welfare system while the migration bill keeps going up and up and up through the roof? You know, it's crazy. They only want us to work so they can use us as slaves, so we can pay tax so they can pay and look after the migrants. Migrants come better off with everything all the time. You don't give a monkeys about people like us.
Yeah, well, Kelvin, I agree with the sentiments of your WhatsApp voice note wholeheartedly. I mean, millions. We're letting millions of migrants in and giving them benefits, welfare, you know, and soon we're going to have to give them full benefits and welfare. This Boris wave, 3.8 million of them. The cost of that, as I say, is financially crippling. It could potentially bankrupt this country. So we've got to do something about it. We've got to do something about indefinite leave to remain, which brings us to our next WhatsApp voice note, and that is from Judy on leave to remain.
Good evening, Kevin. If Nigel Farage does take over the government on the next election, if he's got a good majority, all is to do overnight he could bring this in. Pass a law that nobody can claim benefits, social housing or legal aid unless they've lived and worked in this country for 10 years. That's for everybody. That should sort the men from the boys who are languishing on so-called bad backs, etc.
Good common sense point from Judy, as she always does. She always makes a good point, old Judy. So thank you, Judy. Yeah, I mean, stop giving them benefits and stop giving them legal aid. I would just say to all these asylum seekers, oh, you've come across the channel illegally for some bizarre reason. We're going to put you in a hotel. Oh, you want to fight your case to stay, do you? Your asylum application. Who's your lawyer? Because we're not paying for them. You know, that would, in itself, curtail the ongoing invasion of these shores by these migrants who are coming across, still in their joes, undeterred, oddly enough, by the ludicrous one-in, one-out scheme. Let's go to Epsom and talk to Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Kevin. Great show tonight.
Thank you.
But also, I'm going to give you congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
Because 2 weeks ago, you were talking with Peter Barnes, and that's when the Boris wave first came up on Talk.
Yeah, it was before, Chris, I've got to pull you up there. It was before that. It was like 2 Tuesdays ago. And in a sense, in terms of broadcasting, Isabel Oakeshott and I broke the story. It was actually a column in the Times newspaper. Isabel spotted it, and so it was way before I talked to Pete, although a very illuminating conversation, though I'm sure that was. So yeah, okay. we started the ball rolling on Boris Wave, and it really is a thing. It is terrifying, this. We're going to be consumed by some kind of tidal wave of welfare if we're not careful.
Kevin, I'm going to really make sense of it, because after I heard you and Peter talking about it, I went away and I crushed the numbers with AI. Right? Now, there's 3.8 million, all right? 800,000 next year can claim indefinite leave to remain. Now, if only 50% claim that, all right, that opens the doors to all benefits, including housing, social security, and everything else. It also opens the door to family reunion, so they can bring a wife.
Well, that's the point. Once they get indefinite leave to remain, they'll start bringing their entire clans, their entire families over.
Right, just let me finish, because I've got...
Go on, mate, go on, go ahead.
The numbers, right? So if only 50%, right, claim that, if you extrapolate that out to 2030, that is 11.4 million people, with a cost of, at the public office, that estimated £41,000 per immigrant, at a cost of £320 billion a year, which rises to £430 billion in 2031 when you add in national health and schooling.
Yeah, and by the way, Chris, add that to the £300 billion a year we already spend on welfare for people who are already here, which is crippling enough. So what you're talking about is that being at least doubled. I mean, we literally cannot afford this. This will plunge us into national bankruptcy.
No, we can't, but that's only a saving. What I'd like to see Nigel do, right, there's two things, right? He said he'll retrospective it to look at other people. I'd also, right, because I know it goes on, I absolutely know it for a fact, that the people that come here that claim they're being persecuted in their own country, as soon as they get a passport, they go back to that country for a holiday.
Well, that's if they get a...
They have claimed falsely, so they have made illegal claims on their documentation. They should be...
You think that'll make a difference, do you?
Well, they should be expelled immediately.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the trouble is, Chris, here, you're talking about as if Nigel Farage can do all this. He's not the Prime Minister. Reform are not the government. Labour are the government. Keir Starmer is the Prime Minister, and they won't do anything about this. By the time Reform get the chance to get in, chances are we'll be bankrupt. It is terrifying. Good numbers there, though, Chris. Thanks for a good call. That's Chris in Epsom. Let's go to break. When I come back, Tarquin, the magnificent Tarquin in London, is waiting on the line. We'll have a chat with him.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Tarquin in London, hang on a second. We'll be with you in just a few moments. First, here's a WhatsApp voice note. This is Sandra on Starmer.
There's no swear word or insult to do justice to the way I feel about Keir Starmer. There really isn't. Time and time again, he just goes against the British people, and it's just appalling. And that march the other Saturday in London, that will increase tenfold, because people are just sick and tired of being told, accept this and keep your mouth shut. It's not going to happen.
You're right, there is a rising tide of rebelliousness. People are fed up with this guy. They're fed up with this Labour government. They really have had it. They're at the end of their tether. He doesn't seem to spot this. But trust me, there is a rising tide of rebellion in the air. Here's a quick one from Pete, again on Starmer.
I say that Keir Starmer, he's nothing but a buffle-headed pigwidgeon. You know the sort of person. A Tony, a shallow-paid, a simpkin, a paper skull, beetle-headed, chuckle-headed, clumpish fool.
That's Pete. He's dialed in from the 17th century. Apparently says that Keir Starmer is a pigwidgeon. Who am I to disagree? I think that was a good. I think it was a good message from Pete. I'm not sure what it entirely meant. You know, having been born in the 20th century and this being the 21st century. But thanks, Pete. Interesting. Let's go to Tarquin. Hi, Tark. How you doing?
The magnificent King Kevin, best radio show on national radio.
Thank you. What would you like to say, mate?
What I'd like to say tonight, Kevin, is right up at the front end, you had props to you, mate. Props to you for having on the indomitable spirit of Rupert Lowe. Every time I hear that wonderful man, he just speaks common sense. I mean, I wish, you know, in my dreams that somehow what you put to him could come to pass. Well, I won't mention it again. But I want, you know, 640 Rupert Lowes in our House of Commons, because he, with people like his caliber and his intellect and his loyalty and patriotism to our country, our great nation, without people like that, we are stuffed. And so we need him back around the table. But there are lots of them. There are some really great. I mean, look at Andrew Bridgen, the way he got silenced after the COVID thing. It was disgusting. We want to bring these people back because we need people like that right now, Kevin. And I'm worried that 4 years of scorched earth Fabian policies being, you know, imposed upon us, we're running out of time, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, look, yeah, Rupert Lowe, I agree with you. He's a very interesting voice. And like a lot of people, you know, I lament the fact that his feud with Nigel Farage is irredeemable. They cannot solve that problem, so they will never work together again. So that's a sadness. But I think he's a very interesting voice. And as I say, he was talking about mass deportation when Nigel Farage was saying, well, it's just not possible. It's literally impossible. Well, Nigel Farage seems to have changed his tune. I liked what Nigel Farage said today. And to be fair, Rupert Lowe likes what he said. But the problem we have, Tarquin, as I keep saying, is Nigel Farage is not the Prime Minister. Reform and not the government. We got 4 more years of this Labour lot. And, you know, I suspect they're not even going to confront this massive problem, the indefinite leave to remain Boris wave, tidal wave coming our way. I suspect Labour will do nothing about it. And if that is the case, we could go bankrupt.
We could. And my final point on this, there was check it out, people. There's a podcast on YouTube of Andrew Bridgen talking to somebody today. Apparently clandestine flights are arriving at Manchester Airport nightly with the Syrians and other nationals arriving, and they have them on different entry points, bypassing service there. They've got a special agency that's they're coming in all over the place, Kevin.
Well,
not just
I think that it's a civ-like country. Our borders are not secure. We'll have to look into what you're saying there, Tarquin. But thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, mate. A couple more messages here, texts. This is from Chalky in Market Drayton. He says, halal meat and kosher meat, they are both Middle Eastern traditions. That might be pushing it a bit, actually. You know, you're thinking about Islam and Muslims. Well, they're not just in the Middle East, nor Jewish people. So I'm not quite sure that halal and kosher are Middle Eastern traditions. But Chalky goes on to say that Herefordshire does not need this. Herefordshire. Maybe the whole country doesn't need it, really. They shouldn't be imposing halal meat on people who don't really know they're even eating it. And it is bemusing to me that if you take Newcastle University, 28,000 students from 130 different countries, Newcastle University has decided that there'll be no choice for them. They all have to have halal meat. So you've got the minority of students, the vast minority of students are Islamic Muslims. They want halal meat. Why do all the others have to bow to what the Islamic students want? I mean, they sure, by all means, give the Islamic students halal meat, but other students should have the choice not to have it, shouldn't they? I mean, if I had my way, I don't like halal or kosher slaughter. I think it's cruel. I think it's inhumane. But as I said earlier, it is what it is. It is legal. So therefore, if you're a Muslim student at Newcastle University, Rupert was suggesting Southampton might have the same kind of situation. You should have the choice to eat halal meat, but your religious requirement to eat halal meat should not be imposed on all the other students. That's kind of weird, saying, oh, well, there's a minority of Muslim students, so the majority have to play second fiddle to them. Why? Why? I don't get it. Let's quickly listen to Hev on Palestine.
Hi, Kev. Who the hell does Starmer think he is? He thinks he's talking for the UK, for this great country. Well, this great country wants him out. He doesn't speak for me. I don't recognise Palestine, but I mean, who the hell does Starmer think he is? Bloody disgrace. Absolute. Well, I'd love to know what his wife thinks of all of this.
That's a very good point. But yes, with you, Hev, that was a very good WhatsApp voice note. Thank you very much for sending it. Let's get back to the phones. Let's talk to Richard in the lovely county of Cornwall. Hello, Richard. What would you like to say?
Hi, we spoke last week. You told me to call back.
Oh, yeah. Go on then.
Right, okay. Very, very short and simple. Everybody's talking about, we're going to get rid of Starmer. We want to get rid of Starmer. But how do we know what can be replaced by him? We could end up with somebody like, I don't know, Andy Burnham or, you know.
Well, that's the suspicion. That's the sort of, well, I don't know if it's the fear. I mean, you know, Andy Burnham. I mean, my feeling is nobody could be worse than Starmer. Really? I do. Well, Andy Burnham's sort of Blairite, but he's quite often very far left as well. So I don't know. But I do think Andy Burnham, you know, is a little bit more of a member of the human race than Keir Starmer. So, but our problem, Richard, is doesn't really matter who's leading this lot. We're stuck with them probably for 4 years.
Yeah, that worries me hugely. To be quite honest.
Me too, yeah.
I mean, more than you could actually possibly believe. I mean, I'm not going to get into the deepness of this now, but being Jewish and living in this country and thinking how every day it just seems to be turning worse and worse and worse. That
that's what I think, Richard.
I'll be here in 4 years, to be quite honest.
Well, you should be, mate. But this is what I think. I think this recognising of Palestine is old school. Israel-hating Labourism, Corbynism rearing its... They'll always, this lot, Labour will always come down on Israel if it gets the chance. They hate Israel.
Do you not remember Harold Wilson then?
Well, that's a long time ago.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Listen, Richard, good to talk to you, and stay safe. Good to talk. Look after yourself. Let's go back to the WhatsApp voice note. It says George on Palestine.
Kevin, just out of interest, can a future Prime Minister unrecognise the state of Palestine? Can we unrecognise states? Or once we've recognised it, are we stuck with it? Just a thought.
Well, George, yes, of course we can. But Isabel Oakeshott was pointing this out earlier in the show. Can we trust future regimes to actually do that? Have Labour done something that nobody will quite have the balls to reverse? I think it's an outrage that we've done this today. We've let down Israel, we've alienated America, we've rewarded Hamas, we've rewarded terrorism. I don't know what on earth Starmer thinks he's thinking, apart from perhaps trying to keep the Muslim vote. I think he's pretty much lost that already. What support he has from the Muslim community, I don't think will have been improved particularly by recognising Palestine. I think in their minds, these are old school left-wing Labourite socialists. They're just virtue signalling. You know, we hate Israel, we love Palestine. It's Corbynism, that's all it is. And we shouldn't be wasting our time with silly old ideological virtue signalling. This is the world, this is international political relations, not Sunday school. It's absurd. Let's go to Robert in Hertfordshire. Hello, Robert.
Hi, Kev. Great show as usual.
Thank you.
While I was waiting to come on, I've been doing some research. Now, only 6% of this country's population is Muslim. In Wales, it's 2%. In Scotland, it's 2%. In Ireland, it's 0.6%. I'm saying that the Muslim is more than well represented in this country, you know, for their values and their traditions. And they're only 6% of the population.
I think there's 4 million Muslims in Britain, I think. And there was a poll over the weekend to do with recognising Palestine, and this poll revealed that only 13% of the country support Labour and Starmer's recognition of Palestine. So 87% of the people in this country don't want to recognise Palestine.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to sound at. I don't recognise Palestine.
You see, you're one of the 87%, aren't you?
Well, I just don't. I don't recognise them as a state. You know.
That's because they're not a state. They don't exist.
Well, they're no good to anybody. Never have been. I don't mean the Palestinian people. I mean, you know, Hamas have taken them up because they're just hiding behind them. What I was going to say to you is, I bet you don't get halal when you go to the Ivy, do you?
Well, no. I think I can say no, I don't. I just don't think that halal meat, if Muslims, Islamic people want to eat halal meat, it's part of their religion, you know, of course, do it. I don't like halal slaughter, but it is what it is. They can eat that, but the rest of us, it should not be imposed on us. It's as simple as that. Robert, good points. I've got to move on. Robert in Hertfordshire there. Here's a last WhatsApp voice note. We've certainly ploughed through a lot tonight, haven't we? This is Katie, funnily enough, on halal meat.
Hi, Kevin. I wouldn't worry about halal slaughtered meat. With the rate of inflation, none of us can afford any bloody meat.
That's a good point, Katie. I mean, meat is going through the roof price-wise, isn't it? But halal, you should not be made to eat halal meat in a covert way. A lot of people say the supermarkets are now quietly selling halal meat without telling people. I don't know the veracity of that, but if that's true, that seems to me to be all wrong. Thanks for that, Katie. Let's go to... Well, here's an interesting... This is from Francis in Devon. I used to work in a school with approximately 100 pupils, of which 2 were Muslims. I was told one lunchtime by the kitchen staff that all the meat they served was halal. This was the first any of the staff had heard about it. I was told it was cheaper as the food budget was tight. I went vegetarian from then on. See, if that's true, well, why would I disbelieve Francis in Devon? That's outrageous. Same syndrome. So there's 2 Muslims in this school, 100 kids altogether, and the 98 kids are forced to eat halal meat because there are 2 Muslims in the class. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Ridiculous. It is the subordination of British culture to Muslim culture, to Islamic culture. And I don't like that. I don't know about you. Very quickly, let's talk to Mandy in Felixstowe. Hello, Mandy.
Hi, Kev. How are you doing?
I'm very, very well. I haven't got long. What would you like to say?
I'm sick and tired of this gormless, stupid, idiotic, liver limit
Keir Starmer.
Prime Minister of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm at the end of my tether with him, you know. That's enough. You make me laugh. But where do we go from here?
Yeah, look, Mandy, your frustration, I think, is echoed by millions of people around the country. We look at this guy, we look at this government, and we go, what the hell is going on? We seem to be going to hell in a handcart, run by a kind of weird automaton prime minister running a substandard cabinet, a substandard administration, making terrible mistakes, terrible decisions, constantly U-turning. They don't seem to know where they are. They don't seem to know morning from night. It's ridiculous. They don't seem to be able to put a foot right. Mandy, I share your frustrations. I've got to go now, though the show's nearly over. Thank you for an excellent call. That is about it, folks. As I say, in just a little while, it'll be the news, and then it's our new show, Harry Cole Saves the West. You don't want to miss that. And then Petri Hoskin comes on at 11 p.m. In the meantime, it's good to be back this week. You've been an amazing audience. I've been a mediocre presenter. I'm going to be back tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on Talk with another edition of the Political Asylum at 7 p.m. You better be there.
We will pass what legislation is necessary to see this through. And I think the majority of the public will be behind us because nobody wants to pay so much taxes for people who've just arrived. And look, it's not about race or nationality. It's about rights and responsibility.
But you know that's what people are going to